Hi, happy Wednesday. So after my last live, where I essentially came onto LinkedIn and told everyone you may have worked really hard for your life that you don't actually want, which was really cheerful stuff, I thought today we could continue that cheerful theme with another potentially inconvenient suggestion, which is you might not need a new job. You might need to work out what is actually wrong first, because I think there's a point a lot of successful corporate women reach where everything starts getting lumped into one big category called I am sick of work. And like Sunday night, you're sick of work. Annoyed after a Teams call, you're sick of work. Someone puts a meeting in at 4:30 on a Friday. Yeah, it's a lot, and I get it. And I spent 17 plus years in corporate sales teams, and there were absolutely days where a single email could have convinced me to dramatically resign and start a new life in Bali. But it's something I've realized since leaving, and sometimes I hate my job isn't actually the problem. Sometimes you're just full. Like, imagine your brain and nervous system have a capacity limit, and all day you're taking things in. So, like meetings, decisions, notifications, emails, people asking you things, someone saying, "Have you got 2 minutes?" Well, you know it's not actually 2 minutes. You're switching between tasks, you're solving problems, you're remembering things, you're being professional when perhaps sometimes your preferred response would not pass a HR review. And then you finish it, like you finish work, except mentally you don't finish work. You're making dinner while still replaying the conversation from 2 o'clock. You're watching Netflix while thinking about tomorrow's presentation. You wake up at 3 a.m. and suddenly remember something you forgot to send on Outlook. And then we get to Sunday and your body goes, "Oh God, we have to do it all again tomorrow." So naturally you think something is wrong with my career. Maybe, but also you might never actually be coming down from work. And that's a really different problem. Because if the problem is genuinely, I've fundamentally outgrown this career and want something different, that's one conversation. But if the problem is my job currently occupies 96% of my brain space, that's another. And if the problem is I actually quite like my career, but I've no boundaries and I've accidentally made myself emotionally responsible for the entire department and team, again, a different conversation. So this is why I think we need to get much more specific than work is stressing me out, because you can't fix a vague problem. So what is actually not that bad? Well, I've created something recently called the Not That Bad Audit to help with this. And yes, the name came directly from something I hear all the time in my own life, like, but also with my clients. So my job's not that bad. My life isn't that bad. Other people have it worse. I should just be grateful. And I think not that bad is fascinating because it can actually mean I like 80% of my life, and there are a few things making the other 20% exhausting. Or it can mean I've outgrown this entire thing, but I'm waiting for it to become unbearable and awful, so I have permission to change it. And those require really different solutions. And unless you actually stop and look at what's happening, it's really easy to confuse them. So here's something you can do today. Instead of asking, "Do I like my job?" ask yourself 3 more useful questions. First, what specifically drains me during my working week? Not work, what specifically? Is it constant availability, back-to-back meetings, managing people, a particular relationship maybe? Or the pressure you put on yourself to be brilliant at everything at all times? Is it that you never properly switch off, or you're doing a role you simply stop caring about, frankly? Get specific. The second question is, if I removed the most draining 20% of my working life, would I still want to leave? And that's a really interesting question, because if the answer is actually no, you might not need a 5-year career plan. You might just need some boundaries. But if your immediate answer is yes, still leaving, excellent. That's useful information too. And the third question, what am I tolerating purely because it isn't bad enough to change? That's a spicy one because we're very good at waiting for things to become intolerable before giving ourselves permission to do something about them. And personally, I don't think we need to wait for the breakdown. We don't need to wait for it to be awful. This is the difference between coping and thriving. This is really at the heart of the work I do. I'm not interested in helping women become better at tolerating lives they don't actually want. Like, you probably don't need any help being resilient. You've been doing that beautifully. And like, I want to know what would make your life actually feel better. Sometimes that's a massive change. Sometimes it's actually surprisingly small. And maybe you genuinely love your career, but work needs to stop following you around the house in your head. And maybe you need to stop treating every email like it's carrying the nuclear codes, you know? And maybe you need to remember who you are when you're not being useful to somebody. Or maybe you do the audit and realize, oh, I actually don't want any of this anymore, which is also useful. Because clarity is much more powerful than spending another 3 years thinking it's not that bad. So if any of this has felt slightly familiar, I've created a free Not That Bad audit to help you work out exactly that. So what's genuinely working? What's draining you? What are you tolerating? And are you dealing with something that needs tweaking or a life you've actually outgrown? I've included it also as a free bonus with my corporate come down package, but you can grab the audit completely free on its own too. I'll pop the details in the comments for the caption of this video. Go through it when you've got 10 quiet minutes and just see what comes up, because maybe your life isn't really that bad, but I think there's a much more interesting question, which is not that bad genuinely the standard you want to set for it? So as I say, link is in the caption and the description of this video. The Not That Bad audit is a tool of questions that I asked myself before I decided to leave the corporate world. They're slightly different to the 3 questions I've given you just now, but it should really help you with clarity on where you're at in your life right now. And let me know in the comments if you enjoy the audit. See you later.